Let's unravel the myths around spiritual awakening. Today, I want to talk about the spiritual lies that keep you stuck. This is a new series I'm starting. And the topics we're going to go over today are spiritual bypassing, the empath's trap, hypervigilance equals intuition, and of course, the false white light. So let's start with a topic that is very well known in the metaphysical community, yet quite widely unheard of by everyone else, the false white light. So this is a spiritualist term or an esoteric term that explains a phenomenon wherein there's a deception in the astral realms, in the super consciousness, if you will, or the etheric spaces. This also covers near-death experiences, and many of us believe that when you cross over, you will be accessing the false white light if you do not know better. Now, the false white light is also connected to mind control. It brings in the topics of reincarnation and what I love to call the reincarnation recycle station, though other people call the false ascension matrix. And this is correlated with negative interdimensionals, or another way to say it would be negative alien entities. And also it is known to prevent ascension. So the false white light is an entire movement that I perceive was started by Lady Blavatsky. And when the more New Age concepts came into play, from my take, and I've been in this industry for over 20 years now. My first 10 plus years were deep into the false white light. If any of you guys watching are my homies from way back when I started this channel, you will know that I have pulled probably over 100 videos that I've made because they're immersed in the false white light. And I don't want to offer practices and teachings that I no longer align with. So, talking about the false white light, it's important to understand that there are a lot of entities. Maybe we talk about the ascended masters. Angels can fall into this category. Many different types of beings or entities that people communicate with, those that perceive they're channeling or talking to other entities or beings that have powers and that reside in the etheric realms. Often it is that those communications that come through are actually not the beings that are believed to be connecting with. So this is the reason I put out a lot of videos where I am very vehemently opposed to channeling. I think it's a very dangerous thing to do. A lot of us do it. It can come very sporadically and naturally to many people, though when trying to tune in and connect with other entities or beings, even those that have just crossed over, you're never going to know what you're going to get. And the most common thing that you're going to experience, in my experience of 20 years of channeling, is that you'll tap into the entities that are just above our physical realm. They're just residing in the etheric plane in a fourth dimensional space that is a denser frequency than one would want to be accessing if they're actually tuning into very high level beings such as archangels. And these beings have no problem lying and telling all sorts of stories. In addition to that, if you're not connecting with an actual etheric entity, you may simply be connecting with those that I simply term and deem the controllers. The mind control, handling experiences that have been happening for decades that are actually starting to become much more public now that the CIA is being made to disclose a lot of things that have been redacted from the public for a very long time. Now, the false white light can be very dangerous because it opens people up to entity attachments, to all sorts of negative spiritual warfare. And I'll go into it in another video on this series, but to me, this also ties into Kundalini and how that is a trap for looshing your energy. Loosh is a word that we use when we talk about draining energy. And because the Kundalini siphon is set up in a way where the energy is moving through your chakra system, it's enclosed, and therefore if it's accessed by any other beings that know how to access one's loosh, they can simply drain it right out as if it were a straw. So what I lovingly call the reincarnation recycle station. This used to be a technology that was off of the moon. Now, science has proven that the moon is not a naturally occurring celestial body. It has been rung like a bell. It is unnaturally perfectly round. And this is information that's actually widely publicly distributed, though shockingly still not well known. When the machinery and technology was a bit more archaic, many of us believe that the moon was where the etheric being, when the soul would leave the body, you would move towards a technology that's magnetized by the moon, how the moon has such a very strong magnetic pull on our energy, in the waters on our planet and in our body. And through that technology, just like if we look at the album where it's the pyramid and the rainbow going through the pyramid, that is meant to talk about the etheric color spectrum and the soul and the energies moving through the trapped energy on the dark side of the moon. And in that space, if a soul didn't know what to do, they don't know how to advocate for themselves, they don't actually have to go towards the light. They don't have to go towards the light or the light that they're being shown. If they don't know how to advocate for themselves, they get pulled into what I lovingly term the reincarnation recycle station. Now the technology is a lot more advanced. We've got satellites and all sorts of things going on now. And so it doesn't have to, the soul doesn't necessarily get pulled any longer to a physical location. Things are done a lot more through the simulation. Now, the negative interdimensionals also like to take advantage of the false white light. They very happily will come in and play, the face or the voice of a type of being or an entity that's being idolized over many, many decades or eons or centuries, what have you. A lot of, in my perspective, what people term as ascended masters, even false entities taking on the role of archangels and beings that have a higher level in the hierarchies, as are believed to be in our books of religious studies. They take on the facade of this, and or the entities that have an extremely long lifespan comparatively to one human life has actually gone through different rounds of being different beings that have held a stature or a standing throughout the different epochs or what have you, that were then written into these religious texts and have been relegated to being, gods, goddesses, higher beings, what have you. Because they have interdimensional tools and technologies that we don't have or hasn't been offered to the public, it's easy for someone to deem them as a higher being with much more power and not understand that this is actually an advanced society or a technology, not simply some magic or powers. The false white light is also designed to prevent ascension. So there are a lot of people and animals as well that choose to opt into reincarnation, moving through the belief that they are chained to or bound to their karmic implications, though there is a indoctrination around this that actually it doesn't require so much karmic baggage to pull out of this reincarnation recycle station being bound to Earth, so to speak. Though if you don't know any better, you might just end up in that loop, right? On the rat wheel, if you will.
Parker also asks, what does selling your soul mean in this situation? Like, will they control you when you die and you'll be trapped in reincarnation cycle? And so I kind of partially already answered that. And yes, it's not that you'll necessarily be trapped in this reincarnation cycle only, because they are working to create another one that doesn't have to abide by the laws of agreement and consent. They're creating their own artificial matrix that can play out in a way where they don't have to skirt around the laws of the universe in the same way. It's a much more separated matrix that's their own inverted experience, their own anti-verse. So that trap, that ensnarement would be a really long experience in the grand scheme of things, and it wouldn't even play by the rules of this universe. As we know, there are laws, there are the need for consent and agreement. They do have to show their agendas in some form or fashion, even though we have to decode it. So, you know, it's in a way, it's kind of beyond selling your soul. It can be like they commandeer your spirit in a way where you can get ensnared in, you know, this kind of like anti-verse wormhole Death Star technology, and it is very difficult to get out or come back, because as you know, as we see in this verse already, the memory swiping and the ability for us to access spirit is already daunting. For us to remember who we are and wake up to that in a multidimensional way, it's challenging. So imagine if they were to take your soul, your essence out of this experience with these rules, and it's all their game. So it's definitely not something that I would wish on anybody. So Miss Nikki French, you say, thank you for the great video and love your work. I had a question and wanted to get your thoughts. What's your view on the idea of all of us coming in with guardian angels? Do you see these as beings part of the false light agenda as well? Since my awakening, I've intuitively felt that I should only work through my higher self and declare that only light that I connect to is from the true original prime creator of my soul. I will only engage with other spirits through the higher self deems to be in my highest good, almost acting as gatekeeper of sorts, to not allow any false light beings to interact with me that are not aligned with original prime creator, my higher self and truth. However, I have of course been connected with guardian angels that continue to interact with and almost get a feeling that they are actually higher aspects of self. Either way, I wanted to get your take on the idea of guardian angels, and if there are any recommendations for people to be able to double check their authenticity as well. Or if you think they are all a part of the false light agenda and should protect our energy fields from them as well. Your thoughts and feedback are very much appreciated, and thank you in advance. You're welcome, Nikki French. Okay, so we got several questions in here. Now, first of all, guardian angels. I would like to break down the etymology of angel, first of all. This word angel is important to understand because, as some of us know, our language is chock full of spell casting. Okay? Sound and vibration, tonal frequency is very powerful. And our English language especially, all languages, but especially English language, is chock full of spell casting, which means certain words have been written in certain ways, so when we say them, we actually cast a spell. So, angel, the etymology of angel, the root or origin meaning, is messenger, it's errand spirit, it's mounted courier. That's very general, you guys. So I want to be clear on that, because throughout the times and teachings and beliefs and entrainments, we view angels as often and usually very specific, divine, beings that have powers and ability and are here to serve under the hierarchy of God, in whatever way you deem that. Though an angel is a very general word for messenger, okay? So angels is so general that it can be used in the same way we use the word people, in my experience. That's how I view this now. So, you know, our angelic lines have been, we probably all have angelic DNA. There have been many, many rounds of what we now term angelic species and beings that associate with us and that come forward. When we talk about the false white light, I know that we're wanting to look specifically at what we also term the fallen angels. So first, it's important to understand that you might have a specific idea of what an angel is, but because the actual terminology of angel is so general and vast and vague, that many, many different types of beings could put themselves under the category of angel and misrepresent what you perceive and believe them to be. So that's a form of spell casting. I want you to be aware of that. Now, the guardian angel experience, where a guardian angel is assigned to you when you come into this matrix, I don't know about that one. I really, you know, the way I perceive the whole process of reincarnation is that it has been hacked and is controlled in a very specific manner. So any guardian angel, from my perspective, that would be assigned to you as you're entering into the inverted matrix, I perceive as having the agenda to uphold the inverted matrix. Now, I want to be really clear on this because there are absolutely angelic beings that work to assist, and many of them are us, okay? They're absolutely fallen angelic beings that work to our detriment, and many of them are us. And there are also beings that, just like we all have good and bad, right? We've all inherited the karma that we've been playing out, macro to micro. So can be the same with the angels. As I've stated before, a really easy, crude way to view this is that the angels, as again the being that Barbara Marciniak used to channel, says, look at the angels as the police force of the matrix. And I like this representation because for me it's easy to look at the police force in general, and some of them I would deem as police. Some of them I would deem as peacekeepers. And if I needed help, I would rather talk to the peacekeeper than the police. So I do believe that they're, in a big grand scale, many of them, especially the ones that are interfacing with us a lot, and we see in terms of miracles, are the peacekeepers and or the police, okay? They do assist. They do offer assistance, you know, if you're in the gang. You know, you're looked after as long as you're within that scope of their umbrella, okay? And they will protect you. I have many times been saved by angels and protected by them, especially when I align with them. I have seen miracles happen for me many, many times. I do not doubt their abilities or, you know, their higher frequential existence. What I do doubt now is their affiliation and their agenda. So again, you're the only one that's going to be able to know this. You have to check in with self. If you no longer align with what we term the false white light, redact it, revoke it, rebuke it, and any beings affiliated or under it or upholding it, and then see who's left, okay? Now, I want to clarify some of the ways in which you've termed, you say here, I connect to original true / original prime creator of my soul. Your soul is a technology that's overlaid onto your spirit. Your soul is often hacked. All of our souls are. So if this were me, Nikki, I would reword this. And also it's important to understand there's a creator, there's a demiurge of this physical experience, and then there is a prime creator of the infinity verse. They're different in a way. The prime creator of infinity verse, as per the law, is the truth, matter, antimatter, ether experience that I believe you're wanting to align with. The demiurge is the creator of the inverted matrix and the matrix as a whole. So they're not one and the same in regards to their omnipotent benevolence for your existence, is how I guess I'm going to say it. So align with prime creator, spirit, source of the infinity verse. Okay? Because another thing too with higher self and soul aspects, again, we're a blend of all things. So a higher self, in my view of it now, is simply a part of my soul and spirit that is of a higher density than I in this now moment in my conscious form. That's a lot of different beings. I've incarnated thousands and thousands of times in different realities and timelines and you name it. So I've got infinite higher selves again spellcasting, right? Doesn't mean that I want all of those higher selves to be the one that is going to oversee me, because a lot of my higher selves are also false white light, or aligned with Saturnian, and we're all up in spellcasting, and we've done all of it. So, the thing here is to make sure that you're not just offering your fealty and your loyalty and asking for protection from your soul on a whole, or even now I'm saying higher self. I get, again, just like the word angel, you perceive it in a particular way, but how is it actually defined? What ways in which can they get in through the verbiage, right? That's really important to start looking at. So access spirit, access creator, source, prime of the infinity verse, however you want to term it, but be clear on the differences here. There is an ultimate creator source. There is a demiurge. They're different. And then there is everything in between. And then your soul is a technology that is what is keeping you separate from access to pure spirit. It doesn't mean that your soul is negative or evil. It just means that it is that much removed from spirit, just as the creator demiurge is that much removed from ultimate creator source prime. So I would look at that in the way that you word it. And again, you're the only one that's going to know what your truth is and how you feel safe and protected. And I'm going to invite you, as this whole process is, to know that you have the power and the protection within self-spirit, which is ultimately what is necessary to access in order to own your authority and be fully protected through and through. So the more we practice and work with the assistance inside self, even if we appreciate, other beings assisting us, because there are many that are here to assist, just like there are many that are here to harm, or trick or whatever. So I don't mean to, my personal perspectives on what maybe I've backed away from are no way, shape, or form need to be everybody else's. I just tend to be really I tend to go from one extreme to the other before I find my middle. And there's good reason for that in my own personal experiences. Okay, so I think that I answered your questions.